What is up, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. In today's episode, I got perfect rear suspension for 650 bucks. Stick around, I'm gonna tell you all about it.
What is perfect suspension? I don't know, but I can tell you a million people have a million different answers. You know, it depends what you're doing on the bike. Some people that are doing a lot of trails like their suspension really soft, and people who do a lot of jumping tend to like it really stiff. It's just one of those things that everybody has their own reason and feeling of how they want their suspension to be. Me personally, I have been trying to figure out that journey for a while. When I first got into mountain biking, I wanted my suspension to be super tight, like almost like a hardtail. And then over time, I've got my suspension really soft. And now I'm starting to figure out where I kind of want it, but I still don't really know what the perfect suspension setup is. I reached out to a couple of my buddies so they could explain their setups.
Hey, what's up, Eric? Mark here with the segment. As far as how I like my suspension setup, I'm currently rocking the YT Decoy Core 3. This has got the Fox 38 in the front, and I got the push in the back. The reason why I like this setup is because when I'm going through steep, chunky stuff, this front end just eats everything up and helps smooth it out, brings up my confidence. But the push in the back smooths out a ton of things for me. Brake bumps, the whole 9 yards, it feels like butter.
What's up, Eric? This is Adam from MTV Rad Dad. Currently, I'm riding my Intense Primer 27.5. I've got the Fox 36 up front with a custom vinyl wrap. In the back, I've got my Marzocchi Bomber CR coil shock, and I'm really loving it. Just the fact that it's so planted, I can go through chunks so fast, a little faster than I probably should, and it just feels super controlled.
Hi, I'm Joe Yates. I'm riding the YT Uncaged 9 Öhlins setup. The Öhlins 38 in the front, and the Öhlins coil in the rear. I'm loving this setup right now. The coil in the rear is super predictable, keeps that back tire down nice and squishy. I've had it set up before where it was too stiff and it bucked me over jumps. It wasn't predictable. This setup with this coil, it's super cush. It's very predictable as far as when I jump, I know what's gonna happen. The landings are as smooth as can be.
So everyone has a different reason of why they like the suspension that they like. There is so much on the market and it's so hard to figure out which one you're gonna like until you try them all out. For me, I was like, man, what do? I wanna try this out, I wanna try that out. So I did try a lot out. I tried out 3 different suspension setups on my Evil offering. I tried out air suspension from Fox. I tried out the Push 11.6 coil. And the last one I tried out was the Marzocchi Bomber CR. And I still was not completely satisfied with any of those setups. Going through this journey, I finally figured out what I really wanted. What I really wanted was my suspension to feel soft in the beginning and for it to ramp up really stiff at the end of the stroke. And that's when I discovered the Cascade suspension links made by Cascade Components. These links are supposed to give you a nice soft top end at the beginning of the stroke and ramp up really good towards the end of the stroke. Another cool thing that these suspension links do is that they actually add travel to your bike. So for instance, this bike that I'm riding right here is my Evil offering at 140 millimeters of travel. And after I installed the links, I got 145 millimeters of travel, which is pretty interesting because that 5 millimeters more of travel really made a huge difference on how this bike felt. It just felt like more than just a trail bike. It felt more closer to an enduro bike, which was kind of odd because it only has 145 millimeters of travel. From Cascade Components says, our link for the Evil offering brings the bike to a whole new level. The link increases progressivity to 35% compared to 23% with the stock link. This makes it possible to obtain both excellent small bump sensitivity and bottom out resistance. This is done without compromising the bike's ability to pedal as well. And if you look closely right here on this clip where I'm pedaling, you'll notice that there's very little bob at all. You know, so what Cascade says, it does. It gives you a really efficient pedaling platform. Another thing that I want to mention when you install these links, that you're going to be sitting a little bit more into your sag because of the way they're designed. So you're going to want to go a little bit heavier on your spring rate if you're using a coil shock. And if you're using an air shock, you're going to want to add a little bit more PSI. I went with a little bit heavier spring rate and it made it feel perfect after that. I find myself riding this bike more than any of my other bikes. I truly believe that the Cascade links have really given me a perfect suspension setup. I'm someone who rides coils, and the reason why I ride coil shocks is because I like to set it and forget it, and I don't like to mess with them anymore. I don't like to go and tune it for the terrain I'm going to be riding. I like to just know exactly how my bike's going to perform every single time I ride it. And especially because I love hitting jumps. And speaking of jumps, I did take this bike to a park in Durango, Colorado called Purgatory. It's a very rooty, double black diamonds, very gnarly trails, and there's some jumps as well. And you know, I was super surprised on how well this bike did. I mean, this thing took everything I threw at it. And that same day I had been riding a 170 millimeter bike. I was like curious to see how this thing would do, and I actually did better on this bike with less travel. I have to say, this bike could handle anything I threw at it. And the jumps at this bike park weren't very big. This isn't a bike I would take to Snow Summit, but definitely a bike I would ride on like a not so crazy bike park with some decent sized jumps, some decent sized gaps, berms, all that stuff. And I 100% believe that these Cascade links are the reason why this bike performs so well now. So I'm super stoked that I put these on. I think other people should try them out if they do make it for your model of bike, because it really does make a huge difference, and you don't really realize it until you actually get on the bike and start riding it somewhere.
All right, now let's break down the cost of this setup. Number one, the coil, the Marzocchi Bomber CR cost me $299. Number two, the spring that I got was a Cane Creek progressive spring that cost me $100. And last but not least was the Cascade links that cost me $250. So altogether, I spent $650 plus tax on this setup. That's not a bad price considering if you're gonna buy a more expensive shock, you're gonna be spending $600 to $1,200. So either way, to me, this was a really good deal. Cascade Components does make different links for different frames. So you're gonna have to go on their website to check it out to see if it fits for you. I'll have the link down below for all the parts I just talked about. All right, well, that's it for today. Thanks for watching, and if you like what we do, hit that like button. You want to see what we're up to next, hit that subscribe button, and always remember, start small and go huge.